for dialing into the virtual regional presentations. Obviously, these are a lot different to what we would prefer to do and have done in the past. You know, in normal times, we'd be visiting your town and conducting these presentations in person, and they're usually one of the highlights of our year. We actually love getting out to regional Victoria and talking to our entrants directly, but as things are at the moment, we just physically can't do that, regrettably. For those that you that don't know, my name's Gary Mogford, and I'm masquerading as Emma today. Emma's our events manager, who's done all of most of the work to get the events to where they are so far. But at the moment, Emma's she's taking care of a beautiful 5-week-old baby, so she chose not to join us today, and we'll probably accept that excuse. There's a few, some KVB staff online, so I'll just mention them and they can give a wave, so you hopefully can put a name to a face, or a face to a name, more to the point. Firstly, we've got Sabina Wills, who is our CEO. And Dick, am I allowed to say hardworking or not?
You can call her hardworking CEO. I mean, I won't object too violently.
Okay, we've got Anton, who's our volunteer manager, so he's looking after both the stationaries and the Dr. Roadside programs. We have Sam. Sam runs a program called Leon, which is the Literary Enforcement Officers Network. It's a program that Sam has almost built from the ground upwards, and is now running as a successful program. The program aims at getting all councils and enforcement officer councils working in the same direction as far as illegal dumping goes across the state. So it's both an education program and a forum for the enforcement officers to discuss issues and come up with ways of working it properly. And also, Sam's been doing the work, picked up a lot of the work from Emma doing the awards, since Emma hasn't been around. So thank you for that, Sam. We've also got our chairman, Dick Gross, online as well today. So thank you for joining us, Dick. Just a quick overrun of how today's going to work. I'll call out each project as we go along, and whoever's online to talk to us about that project, you'll need to unmute yourself and spend roughly about 2 minutes talking about your project. We really don't want speeches. We want just a brief overview of what the project is, and the main aim for that is so that others are aware of what the programs are and what they're about. If you go over your 2 minutes, I'll start getting a bit fidgety, and I might start waving at you, and if you continue, I'll probably start talking over you, and if worse comes to worse, we'll mute you. We'll be quite brutal about it, but please try and stick to around about 2 minutes. Projects won't come out in any particular order, so if you're here to talk about more than one project, it's unlikely you'll get to talk for 10 to 15 minutes in a row. But as that, it's just luck of the draw as to how they come out. I'll apologise in advance for any mispronunciations, and I'll just very quickly blame Emma's American accent for the mispronunciations. She has a bad influence on all of us. We'll be sending out certificates after the actual award ceremony. Normally we'd hand them over at these events, but obviously these events aren't happening in the normal way, so they'll be issued after the actual awards event. I'll try and mention it at the end as well, but if I forget, Sam's going to put up a link to a survey in the chat format on this Zoom meeting. So we'd love it if you can copy down that link, and just it should only take 5 minutes to fill out a survey. And that's really trying to help us make these sorts of things better in the future. So I'd appreciate that. But as I said, I'll attempt to remember to remind you of that at the end as well. Just for those that haven't been around KVB before, a very brief history on KVB, and I'll try and stick to my 2 minutes for that. Keep Victoria Beautiful was formed over 50 years ago. Initially, it was set up as an anti-litter campaign. That was initiated by a lady by the name of Dame Phyllis Frost, who you may or may not have heard of previously. Dame Phyllis was a community advocate in the areas of the environment, litter, and women's prisons, and did a lot of work in good work in making those sorts of things happen, or changes happen in those areas. She was one of those ladies who did have the ability to talk to the people she needed to speak to make things happen. And in the case of Keep Victoria Beautiful, she was able to speak to Sir Henry Bolte, the Premier of the day, put forward her case, and as I said, Keep Victoria Beautiful was the result of that came out of that meeting as an anti-litter campaign. Now we operate today still in litter, and obviously that's expanding out to illegal dumping, which is obviously a more unpleasant type part of litter that's happening. We also work in the environment more generally, and particularly in the areas of communities and community groups that are doing work in community in environmental functions as well. So still involved in litter, still involved in the environment, and also very heavily in assisting community groups to do the work they're doing. And in the case of the awards programs, it's really recognising and congratulating the community groups for the work they're doing. So having done that, and I didn't time it, but I think I got fairly close to my 2 minutes, we'll kick off. And as I said, these are coming out in no particular order. So the first person I'll get, well, I don't know who the person is, but the first group I'll get to talk is about a project called Public Art and Horsham Heritage Trail, which is an entry in the community category.
Am I there, Gary? I
can hear you now, yes.
I don't think there's anybody else from Horsham to speak to that, is there?
There's no one sticking a hand up or waving at me. No.
This particular program is about, in many ways, street art, public art, and a group of young students undertook to start the work of painting and decorating boxes of power boxes in the main street that had been put there by the power provider, but were ugly green boxes, and they were highlighted to do designs on, which were quite artistically done, and the kids not only designed them, they also applied them. And apart from that, the Public Art Trail in Horsham lists a whole route around the Horsham CBD where there are other interesting points of art. And some of them include, for instance, the original mailbox of Horsham is near the Royal Hotel. There is murals in 2 or 3 of the laneways. There is the Horsham Post Office bell, which is mounted near the current post office. But a whole series of public art features and others in what we know as Roberts Place, a small semi-closed off no parking area in Horsham CBD. So this project was very much run by the Community Arts Director in Horsham and involved initially children, but more recently the Horsham Tidy Towns Committee have taken it on, and we're going to proceed to do other power box installations around the CBD.
Excellent.
How do I go for time, Gary?
Oh, I was going to say you've got plenty of time left, but that's fine. You've done well, David. Thanks very much. What a great project. I love hearing what these are about. Okay. Now, just before we go any further, is there anyone that is presenting that needs to get on early and that they have things to do in a half hour? So, okay. So, Andrew, if you want to tell us about, well,
I think Carmel's trying to contact you.
No, it's not Mag Keen, but yeah, within the hour, I'll be very happy. Thank you.
okay. All right. So, yeah, Andrew, you did put your hand up. Do you want to unmute yourself and tell us? You'll need to tell me which project you are. And
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Gary. I'm representing the 150 kilometre feast, and which was the social wellbeing category, and I'm representing the virtual Horsham show, which was, I can't remember which category that was, and also the young legend, Bart Turgoose.
okay.
He sends his apologies today. He's at school, so I might just touch on Bart for 2 minutes. I probably need 2 hours, but anyway, let's just cut straight to the chase with Bart. Bart is a young 16-year-old entrepreneur. He's had 3 businesses. He currently runs a photography business. He's just finished undertaking his Cert 3 in business management through a traineeship with me at the Horsham Agricultural Society. That's a 2-year course. He's done it in 10 months. He's now taken on another certificate. So he's doing his university now in year 11 so that he doesn't have to go to school. So that's working really well for him. He works part-time in an electrical business after school, and he's also on the board of our local Chamber of Commerce, and he's created a young entrepreneurs program for people. It's sort of twofold. It's people who are new in business, but also he's also supporting and mentoring young people in business. And just yesterday, he spent time with a young 14-year-old boy and his cousin who are avid yo-yo biscuit makers, and he's been helping with them with their branding and their socials. So he's an incredible young man. He's also written 5 or 6 articles for the Clay Target Shooting Australia magazine. He's a clay bird target shooter, and he's also developing a program with their president, the national president, to teach people the sport of clay target shooting and bring it into the schools as part of the curriculum, so that he can so I guess he just wants to teach people, or young people particularly, that the safety elements of shooting, and also the whole paddock to plate, with the game birds and dressing them, field dressing they call it. So he's the current Horsham Rural City Council Young Citizen of the Year, no doubt. What other accolades has he done? I think that probably sums up Bart pretty well.
Okay, you've done well. So if you want to, you can continue on your 150 kilometre feast.
Okay, so talking about the 150 kilometre feast, that came out of about April last year. We've been in lockdown for about a month, and obviously things weren't looking good. And I had to think, working at the local showgrounds, it's a historical precinct, and we've been doing about 5 years of research and development about how we can raise our income. So came up with the idea of a 150 kilometre feast, which basically celebrated the farmers, the growers, the producers, the service providers, all around food and wine. So tickets were $150 per person. They were the food and wine was sourced within 150 kilometres of Horsham. We used 150 hay bales to build an outdoor dining room on the river, and it was capped at 150 people. That sold out before it actually went online. So we decided in November, this was a February event this year, so we decided in November that we'd make it run 2 events. So I engaged 4 chefs, and we had about 60 volunteers, and we were going to do it a week apart in February. Then we had another little lockdown in February, so that pushed us to be back to back on a Saturday night and a Sunday night. So while, you know, the adrenaline was up here, I might as well keep going, because I think if I had have done it one night and thought, oh, let's do this again next week, I may not have thought, let's do it again next week. So anyway, so that's now going to be an annual event, an annual fundraiser for our organisation. So we raised nearly $25,000. And that was partly, a part of that was because our show went virtual last year. All our ag shows in the region across Victoria anyway cancelled. So if I can sort of morph into that conversation about our virtual show, I'm currently running another one, but with a shorter amount of time. So we announced in May that the Horsham show, as we traditionally know, was not going to be in the same format. So while I made the announcement that it was going to be cancelled, at the same time I announced that we were going online. So I ran competitions and challenges over Facebook from May the 1st. A lot of them were just daily photos, like put in a photo of whatever the day's challenge was, whether it was a sunset or whether it was a flower or whatever. That ran again in the second month, and we did black and white photos. And then in the third month, we did another competition that's just slipped my mind. But the purpose of it was to keep engaged with the community. So from the announcement of the cancellation of the show, we actually gained 500 new likes on our social media, which is pretty impressive in terms of, well, community connectivity. But normally when something cancels, you know, everything just falls away. And those of you who follow social media understand the benefits of having a good following. And I wanted to build that community connectivity to prepare for this year's show. Little did I know that we were going to do a repeat. So actually on show day, which was our original date, we went ahead and scheduled over 100, well, you can only schedule 100 posts a day on social media. So we scheduled them. Young Bart worked with me on that, and he worked till 6 o'clock in the morning to get all those posts scheduled in time. And then, so it started with, we got a video from the then Agricultural Minister wishing us all the best. So we used, you know, she sent us that footage. So we opened our show that day on Facebook with that. The President did a live stream welcoming everybody. And then every 5 minutes we set a post. So everybody that was involved in the competition side of the show, they submitted their photos of their iced Marie biscuits or their, you know, 6 lemons or whatever. So they all went into, you know, they went to judges from all around the world, Melbourne, Ireland, Malta. And so we used Google Drive to, I guess, administer all of that process. So when the results came in, we branded every photo that was a winner, put it all on Facebook. We had a virtual fashion parade where I engaged the local businesses to send in 6 photos of some garments. Musicians had 4 musicians sending in clips of them playing for us. We did a virtual animal nursery where I went around and videoed animals and their babies. And the highlight, interestingly enough, was posting our historical video of our 100th show back in 1978. And that reached London within 8 minutes. So during that week, we had over 30,000 followers on social media. And that particular post, that reached over 16,000 people, and it had, I don't know, hundreds of shares. And it was just such a great connectivity. So
Good. Yep. So if you could start finishing up now, please, Andrea.
Done.
Done? Okay, excellent. So well done. Got 3 in one hit. Perfect. Thank you for doing that. So next one we'll go to is synthetic greens and upgrade surrounds at Dimboola, which is in the community category. Anyone want to talk to me about that one? Yep, we shall move on. Recycling the Wimmera in the waste category, which is at Dimboola also. Nope. Okay. Delki Garinga, Good Growing, from Whale, which is in the Indigenous culture category. We're not doing well. So Carmel, do you want to jump in and do the one that you're looking after, please?
Sure, thank you. So I'm talking about the Wimmera Cancer Centre. This is a building, a community project that it opened in January 2019. It was a $5 million project, and it was successfully built and opened after 3 years of fundraising by the communities of the Wimmera and Southern Mallee, as well as state and federal government funding. So it's really important that it wasn't just Horsham, it was the entire Wimmera region contributed to this project. It began with Rachel Latore, who was diagnosed with lymphoma in 2013, and for much of her treatment, she had to travel to Ballarat and beyond. So she wrote to Andrew Board, who was the minister or the representative of the region at the time, wishing for a new cancer centre. And that's what saw the whole campaign snowball. The then Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, visited the Wimmera Healthcare Group and committed $1 million to the centre, which was absolutely phenomenal. Another really strong campaigner to the centre was Don Johns. Don had an amazing commitment to the community and our health service. His passion and vision was a better building to deliver cancer and dialysis and hospice care services or palliative care services. Wimmera Healthcare Foundation, Healthcare Group Foundation, apologies, Don formed over 20 years ago, and to the time of his death, he was still chairman. Committed $420,000, sorry, to the centre. Don coined the slogan, "Give where you live," which was pivotal in successfully raising the $1.6 million and counting that has been donated to the project from the community. Cancer survival in the Wimmera Southern Mallee is poorer than the rest of Victoria. And while the reasons for that are multifactorial, the tyranny of distance is a significant factor. So being able to provide great quality service close to home will impact our survival data. And it also impacts the improving the experience of cancer for people in our region. We are still receiving donations, and that money is going towards improving services such as music therapy and other services for patients who can't afford to travel with volunteer services and all of that sort of thing. So the whole project has just been a really beautiful collaboration, I guess, of the community to really improve care in the region for people. And it's just been an absolute honour to be a part of that.
Well done. Well done. And good to hear Don being mentioned. Yep, I knew Don for a hell of a lot longer than most of you people in Horsham would have known him, but certainly made an impression and was obviously a very impressive person. Now we might jump a bit differently here. Is there anyone here to talk about any of the other Dimboola projects? Yes or no?
Lindsay Smith.
Yes, Lindsay. Okay, so which project, I'll get you to go with that. Which project are you talking about, or projects?
Well, the three we did last year was finish a boundary fence. Unfortunately, it was covered with stringy bark and banksias, and we had to get an old fence out and put it in. It was 400 metres roughly, and it took us a number of weeks to do that because most of our crew were at around the 80 mark. So we're lucky enough to have a little Dogon tractor, so we ended up with replacing the fence with a neighbour who covered the cost of materials, and we've also got a fire break now between us and the neighbour, and of course we've also got protection now for the reserve as far as his livestock's concerned, which is horses and sheep. So a project that was put on the hold 19 years ago because,
Right.
because it was a major event to do it.
Mhm.
Lucky for us, we got the equipment to do it today. So that completes our boundary fences, which we try to keep protection for the reserve. The other thing we got involved with was Greenie Australia, and this is a project where the reserve has probably got 600 acres or 250 roughly hectares that have been cultivated. Some of it was Banksia country. The person that cleared it wasn't a good farmer, he was a plumber. So it regenerated, and the unfortunate part, all the stringy barks were missing. And the project ended up putting in 7,000 plants on the south side of Banksia, established Banksia bushes. And we hope in the next 20 years we'll have our canopy back again. So that, the other one was the biggest weed project I've ever taken on. We had a very good season last year, and as you can know from all the grain produced from the Wimmera, and it produced every weed you could think of. As we've been trying to stop seeding for 19 years, it was critical. We were lucky when they wrote the original health part. They said that it covered workers going out and also volunteers. And Emma Keeley, their local member, produced part of the act, and we stuck it in the car in case a policeman pulled us up. And we kept, every week we kept going with the weeds. So we put in over 1,000 hours to get there. So it's ongoing management.
Yep.
And it always an area, these areas, as the vegetation comes back, the weed control will come in easier again.
Okay. Mhm.
It's a trust for nature property, permanent holding, 2,000 acres, or 845 hectares. So it's 3.5 kilometres long and 2 kilometres deep, and backs into the northeast corner of the Little Desert National Park. So it's a critical holding.
Yep.
It's got 11 different combinations of vegetation, and we're doing the project to protect it for the future generations. That's about it.
Well done. Got yourself an ongoing occupation.
I had to shift out of Horsham.
No, good on you. Well done. Okay, so next we'll go to Horsham Tidy Towns Facebook page, which is in the education category.
There I am. Because the Horsham Tidy Towns Committee felt that there was a need for us to send our message further, a couple of our members got together and established a Facebook page. You may have heard Andrea talk about this also, but that Facebook page we're using to give the message of what's going on with Tidy Towns, and to also promote some of the programs that other people may be interested in. One of the great offshoots of this is that one of our local colleges has adopted or using the Facebook page as part of their studies with their year. Now I've got to get this right. I think it's year 6 or 7 students. And as a consequence, the Horsham Lutheran College is now taking part in some of our programs. They have in the past been a part of an entry into Tidy Towns Awards, but we'll see more of that because of the Facebook page. The Facebook page has got something like 800, I haven't got the figure in front of me, people who connect with it. And as you can tell, my involvement has been limited, but it's a great way for the Horsham Tidy Towns Committee to promote the ideals of tidy towns and KVB.
Well done. Well done. So we'll now move on to Polyrock soft plastic reuse, Coles car park at Horsham. It's in the waste category.
Thank you, Gary. And it's good to know that Dick is there and our CEO. Look, this project, our committee is really, we're really enthusiastic about. The Coles car park in Horsham, to put it mildly, was a disgrace. It was uneven. It was puddles of water when it rained. The traffic arrangements were bad, and it just didn't project what we would have thought was a good projection for Horsham being a tidy town. We wrote to the manager. We wrote to Coles and said, it's about time you lifted your game on behalf of tidy towns. We were most pleased to get a response from Coles to say, yes, we will. And sooner than later, we got a series of plans back saying, this is the proposal to reconstruct the car park, which we made comment on, and we made several minor adjustments to it. But included in that proposal by Coles was that they would use a product called Polyrock in the concrete that was used in the car park. Polyrock is, and this is where Horsham's really excited, Polyrock is closing the full circle on recycling. Coles and other supermarkets promote the use or correction, the non-use of soft plastics like plastic bags, and they had a receptacle to collect that soft plastic at Coles in Horsham. A local contractor from Wastebusters in Horsham picked up that soft plastic, sent it to Melbourne. It was processed into a product called Polyrock, which is in fact takes the part of aggregate in concrete. That product was then sent back to Horsham Concrete, and Horsham Concrete then used it to produce the concrete in the car park at Coles. It completely closes the circuit and the recycling circle. And we're really pleased that that happened. The product is excellent. Everybody who used it felt it was excellent. And the use of Polyrock by Coles and the promotion of it, we can only endorse.
It's interesting that community action has prompted Coles to do something, because we had a similar response down on the Mornington Peninsula where a community group approached, I think it was Woolworths down that way, in relation to their car park, and it was more the rubbish and litter situation. But got a positive result, and now that supermarket is now involved in a positive way as well. So that's promising if we've got particularly big companies doing the right thing when they're challenged to do it. So that's
Gary, just one closing remark, that the standards that Coles adopted for their car park that we commented on were very, very high standard. We've now used that in talking to other supermarkets in town to say, hey, go around and have a look at Coles, lift your game, and there's an ideal standard to go by. We hope our council might also follow suit.
Yeah, good. Very good. Now, Olivia, I've just noticed you pop up on the screen there, and welcome. I don't know whether you've come to present on a project or whether you're just listening in to see what's happening.
Yes, that's right. Just tuning in to say hello. I do have to head off in about 2 minutes, but yes, we're presenting tomorrow, so I thought I'd get a bit of a
You're tomorrow, okay.
introduction.
So
love your work. Thank you.
That's okay, thank you. Okay. Horsham Botanic Gardens, English Elms, which is in the Heritage and Culture category.
Gary, the curator at the gardens, Ryan, thought that he might be able to dial in. When I just leave this one for a moment, he may join us. He said he might be able to get here about 3 o'clock.
Okay, which will then head towards the Horsham Regional Livestock Exchange, which is a project in the energy category.
Thank you. The Horsham Regional Livestock Exchange, and for those who don't know what a livestock exchange is, it's a sale yards, stock sale yards. A lot of people say, what's an HRLE? The sale yards at Horsham were unroofed, which had a problem of stock not being properly looked after if it was wet and during the heat. And also there was an issue down there with very high power bills because of lighting at night. So the arrangement was put into place for the whole of the sale yards to be roofed. And the area we're talking about is about the area of the MCG, about that sort of area. And the whole area was to be roofed. So there was 2 energy outcomes out of that. One was that the water, the rainwater that was fell on the roof was then captured and then reused in the sale yards for cleaning and other activities around the sale yards. But the biggest was the energy that we could create by the installation of solar systems on the roof. And there's a 100 kilowatt plus solar system mounted on the roof, which is then connected to a battery system. And now at night, where the agents and the farmers and the stock agents and that meet, they are lit and they work in a safe environment, which is from the solar energy that has been stored from the roof mounting of the solar panels. Now, that has got a great advantage to not only saving energy, it also has other advantages of OH&S. It's safer for everybody there. Much better lighting because it's across the whole area. And secondly, the stock have the advantage and the agents of being in the dry if it's wet, but more so out of the heat during the hotter months. So a great project, and it's part of the development of that livestock exchange.
Very good, very good. Langlands Track, which is in the environment category.
And again, I don't think our member is here. So Langlands Track, for those who know Horsham, Horsham has the Wimmera River flowing through it. And for many, many years, there's been a lot of work done on the north side of the river to create walking paths and an environment which is very well used. However, on the south side of the river, the area for the majority of the river was inaccessible because it was private land. The farmer or the landowner had rights right down to the water edge. But within that area, there was billabongs that were a really attractive area. The Langlands Track, the Wimmera River Improvement Committee negotiated with the Wimmera Catchment Authority, but more so with the landowner to get access to the land. The land was then fenced off so that the stock were no longer able to get right down to the river. And then a walking track of about 2 kilometres long was created and sealed, I might add, with the use of a bit of help from the Catchment Manager Authority and also Council. And it's now a very, very popular spot. But the great environment outcome is that these billabongs that were for 70 years unwatered, if that's an expression, can now be watered, and there's a regulator put in at either end, and the control of water into the billabongs as part of the Langlands track has been achieved, and it's a really great environmental outcome.
Another good project. Well done. Clean Up Australia Day 2021 in the litter category.
Well, Gary, you and I are both into this litter, and Horsham Tidy Towns Committee prides itself as being where the so-called Adopt the Highway started. But we felt the Australia Day, this Clean Up Australia Day, was a very, very it's a project that needs to get full support. So we gave it the support the weekend before the Labor Day weekend because of other activities in Horsham. And we collected over 8 cubic metres of various rubbish and large items from our highway system around town. We ended up with about 11 of our committee members, plus another 14 from the town that came out to assist us on that day. Gary, you were involved. The Rural Roads Victoria helped us with some PPE, and it was a great outcome. But the ongoing thing is that we realised that the real issue, and this is what happened yesterday, I wanted to make the point. The litter issue on our highways is gross. It is absolutely woeful. And in Horsham, Rural Roads Victoria have removed the bins. Why? Because people were using them. So we've removed the bins, and I've got a letter from the minister saying we've removed the bins, but it's not to worry. Volunteers will now undertake the cleanup. Well, thank you very much.
Very kind of you.
I'm having my 5 bob worth there, but we now, as a committee, get out once a month, first Monday of the month, 9:30, and the townspeople know it. And we're getting volunteers from the town coming to join us. And we've joined and registered again with Adopt a Roadside. And we get out there to clean up the wayside stops in particular that are just unbelievable after a month of rubbish being dumped there.
Yep.
And so that Clean Up Australia Day was the catalyst to an ongoing program in Horsham.
Excellent. Excellent. And you are right, volunteers are basically the only people that do clean up rubbish from our roadsides across the state.
And I can't believe, Gary, that people drive and commute in Melbourne on the freeway and the highway network. They are just, kilometre after kilometre of rubbish. Nobody cleans it up. I can't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow,
that's a whole other story.
Eh?
That's a whole other story.
That's my 5 bobs worth. Dick, no doubt, if he's listening, call it up.
Well done. Thanks, David. All right, so we've now been through all of the, people have had opportunities to talk about all of the projects we were going to talk about with this session.
Except the Botanic Gardens.
So if you want to go back into that then, David.
The Horsham Botanic Gardens are a little secret that a lot of people don't have or take the time to see and to enjoy. But they were designed by William Guilfoyle, who designed the Botanic Gardens in Melbourne, plus 7 other regional botanic gardens in Victoria. And our gardens are generally to his plan that was done in the 1880s. The part of that plan and part of the plantings that he did were from of English elms, and those English elms have been nurtured over 100 years now to make sure that they are healthy. This particular project was that the elms were in need of some extra help, and the current curator was able to provide that and the elms and bring them back to a state of, we hope, longevity for being a real feature of the Horsham Botanic Gardens. I might also add that in the Botanic Gardens, a little feature is that any of the pathways have got a name, and the pathways are all named after a curator who contributed over the 120 odd years of the gardens to the health of these English elms.
Excellent. Excellent. Well done. Thank you, David. Okay, so that finishes, as I said, the entries that we had for this session. So thank you for that. I'll remind you about that survey again. And the link is in the chat if you want to go to grab the link, and we'd appreciate if you would spend the 5 minutes doing that. I don't believe there's any encyclopedias expected to be written. I think it's mainly yes/no answers to some questions. So if you could do that, that it would very much appreciate that. Unfortunately, you'll need to keep your eye out. We'll start sending out information about when the actual awards event will be. It was planned to be in Horsham, but COVID has struck again. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to have an event in our normal way. So it will be back to an online.
It's going to be held in Hastings. Sorry, Gary.
Yeah. It was going to be. It ain't going to be now. So it will be an online event again. We're just working through that at the moment as to when we can do that, because with the lockdowns that we've still got here in Melbourne, things like getting people to be able to go to places to be filmed is an issue in itself. So we're still working our way through that. But as soon as we have tied that down, we shall let you know when the award ceremony will be. So thank you for coming on today. Much appreciated. Dick, would you like to add some final words for us, please?
Oh, look, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming in. It's pretty inspiring stuff. Horsham, once again, overachievers, public art, the Heritage Trail, the Facebook page, the car park work with the Polyrock. Just incidentally, we've got a house in regional Victoria, which we've just put up a picket fence made of plastic pickets using recycled milk cartons. So, that circular economy has got to be everywhere. The Botanic Gardens, Langford's track, Don John's legacy is being carried on by the people who've come after him, and it's remarkable. And of course, we heard about Bart and the 150-kilometre feast, and Dimboola, not to be done, a whole lot of stuff too, with boundary fences and weeding, and of course the inspiring work on the fundraising for the Wimmera Cancer Centre. The weeding idea from Dimboola really resonated with me, because when the Ring of Steel came down around Melbourne, my wife and I immediately got in the car and went straight for the Wimmera and the Mallee, through Horsham up north to following the Silo Trail. So it was amazing how fertile everything looked. This western part of Victoria, I've never seen it look so good. And so it looks good, but there's also a lot of weeds. So that sort of resonated with me. And also, I couldn't help but noticing when I went a few months ago, just how successful I think this part of Victoria is in recovering from the centenary drought or millennium drought of a decade ago. So, there's a lot of good stories coming out of the Wimmera and the Mallee. So, a lot of those were related to us today from a community point of view, and it was great. So thanks very much, everyone. We look forward to the Dower battle. Uneasy lies the head that wears a crown. So Hastings has the crown at the moment, but I can see, Horsham and Dimboola and really up there trying to wrest it off poor old Hastings. They might only be a 1-year wonder, I sense, even though they're national. Thanks very much. We'll see you at that competition. It'll be virtual. I remember the last time we had the competition was run at Beechworth. Dimboola was stuck near the toilets, and they thought that the people I spoke to said that it was deliberate because Beechworth is so threatened by Horsham in this competition. And I thought to myself, thank God it's nasty. Thank God it's competitive. Thank God, you know, those people from Horsham were stuck near the toilets. It'll go down the mythology of tidy towns, how a petty, nasty Beechworth was to poor old Horsham. Anyway, thanks for coming. We'll see you next time.
Thank you all. Good luck.